Thank you very much for your kind introduction. And here I want to thank Iowa Women's University's kind invitation, as well as disaster literacy, not disaster literacy, it's hazard literacy centers kind invitation. Let me here to share multi-scale resilience disaster risk management. And your university, in fact, is the top one woman university in the area, right? In mainland China, in Hong Kong, we do not have such term of a woman university. I think Tokyo Woman University as well as Japan Woman University also have a global impact in the area. And here, based on the very top platform, I wish the center of hazard literacy grow bigger and bigger and receive higher and higher global impacts. Okay, so before the discussion of what is multi-scaled resilience and disaster risk management, I want to introduce a little bit about myself as well as my department. I come from Department of Geography and Resource Management. We are a geography department under Faculty of Social Science. But we do provide a course like geomorphology and something like earth science. But our focus is human geography and physical geography as well as GIS. And I am from the branch of human geography. Therefore, I teach a lot of courses address human geography. For example, geography of China, population and migration, world development, comprehending the city and food and hunger, as well as culture and heritage tourism. And I also do some research address disaster risk management, population and health, as well as a smart city. And Professor Shaw mentioned ISO. I am also serving some posts in the International Standard Organization. Yeah, I'm the co-convener of a joint working group to study the standards for city information modeling and urban digital twin. If you are interested, please let me know. There is an organization named the Smart City Association, and their base is in Seoul, and we have many collaboration. Okay, so now let's go to look at what I want to discuss with you. And today I see that most of the participants here are postgrad student and young scholar. And today exactly my presentation is for you instead of for our senior professors. And today I want to discuss what is the multiple scaled resilience. We know that resilience is ability, right? Recover and bounce back from adversity and the setback. This is the one of the widely accepted and easily understanding definition for resilience. But in our human society, in fact, we have a different scale resilience: individual resilience, family resilience, community, and city resilience. And all of them, in fact, have interaction with disaster risk management. And now let's look at them one by one. And individual resilience is actually the ability of individual, the person, individual person's ability to recover from the difficulties, the setback, and there are many different types of difficulties. For example, for our student, a bad grade, a bad marks, maybe one times of the difficulties. And which subject are really interested in individual resilience? They are psychiatrists and behavioral science researchers. And now Connor Davidson resilience scale is one of the widely adopted scale to measure the level of individual resilience. And now this scale has also been adopted in disaster research. And disaster scholar Anna Matsukawa, she and her team has also developed a disaster resilience scale for individual. This is the conceptual framework of Anna's disaster individual resilience. We can see that she and her team, they use knowledge, awareness, and action to measure the level of individual resilience in different phases in mitigation, preparedness, response, and recovery. And she helped us to understand that, in fact, this time of resilience is impacted by micro, meso, and macro. Micro factor, that means gender, age, and family incomes or education level. And meso impact factor include the infrastructure, formal resource, social capital, and local economic. And natural hazard, climate change, population change, institutional structure, those are macro factors which have significant impacts on individual resilience. And now let's go to look at a piece of work to apply Connor-Davison's resilience scale, assess healthcare workers in a post-disaster setting. Yeah, I and my team applied this scale to assess the healthcare workers in Sichuan. We know that in 2008 there was a disastrous earthquake in Sichuan. It caused 100,000 deaths and numerous injuries as well as damage in the areas. And we went to three hospitals. Hospital A is the largest one. It provides 4,300 beds for the patients. Hospital A and B located in the capital city of Sichuan, and Hospital C is the smallest, but it's located very close to the epicenter of Wenchuan earthquake. And we collect about 500 samples from these three hospitals in 2019. That means 11 years after the earthquake. And we check, we test the reliability of Connor-Davison's resilience scale. We found is even better than the one validated in the US. And now let's look at the result. We divide those 15,000 participants into three groups. One group is unexposure healthcare workers. That means they came from the different part of Sichuan or different part of China. They did not experience Wenchuan earthquake in 2008, so they did not expose to Wenchuan earthquake. And the second group named exposed healthcare workers as survivor. That means they experienced Wenchuan earthquake, but they were still kids. They were survivors from the Wenchuan earthquake. And the third group named exposed healthcare workers as rescuer. That means those healthcare workers, they participate in the rescue work during and immediately after Wenchuan earthquake. So we assess the resilience level of these three different groups of people, and we here detail. The detailed tables are example for our postgraduate student. We provide a descriptive analysis of these three group of people and what types of exposure, because we concern the different time of exposure, right? And from our participants, 70% of them reported spending nights somewhere else than home. They had needs of food and water because their home, their house has been destroyed, their community had been destroyed, and they need to relocate to other places. They need shelters. Some of them participate in the rescue. Those are the 5 frequent times of exposure reported by our participant. So the table in the right side is the level of their resilience by different groups. And the next step, we want to furtherly understand what is the significant influencing factor for healthcare workers 11 years after this disastrous earthquake. So we use multiple regression analysis, and based on the result, we understand that in fact hospital is an significant influencing factor, gender, education, as well as the length of the service year and how they grow after the disaster, especially for their mental health. And then what terms of discussion as well as implication, right? For our young student, this is maybe the most difficult part, because we want to link our findings, our data with the existing findings in the area. Number one, we found that healthcare workers reported a low level of resilience even 11 years after Wenchuan earthquake. Why? Why we say it's low? Because we were adopting a widely accepted scale, already validated scale, and we compare the data reported by our healthcare workers and the one reported in the US, while Connor and Davidson validate their data. So you can see that the public in the US report 80 score out of 100. However, our healthcare workers report less than 60, so we say it's low. It's lower than the general public in US. Oh, US is not China, right? There is still geographic difference. So we find another piece of work. The general public in China reported 64 out of 100 in 2007. So those healthcare workers still reported lower than the marks reported by the public in China. But we found that it's slightly higher than the marks reported by the survivor from a large maritime disasters in South Korea in 2014. I'm sure the scholars as well as the students here are more familiar with this study than me. And this survivor report only 50. So why you adopt a validated, widely adopted scale to measure resilience? You can compare your data with others and then understand the place of the resilience. And the second one is female healthcare workers reported high, and especially those with higher education level reported higher resilience level. And we found this exactly consistent with the score reporting by nursing students following the 2010 New Zealand earthquake, as well as the students report following 2011 Great East Japan earthquake. So we compare our data with the others study in different areas. What is the implication? In fact, the implication is that when we talk disaster studies, right, we cannot suppose the studies is for all the students, and we want to have a broader concept that the disaster education or disaster intervention, when we want to launch programs in the community, we will not have enough resource for everyone to participate in those time of the intervention or education program. So we need to know who are the prioritized group. Here we understand, right? If the local health authority want to launch a resilience improvement program, and those male as well as those with a lower education level, they are vulnerable group and they should be prioritized in such time of resilience intervention programs. And number three, we find that disaster exposure. Yeah, Wenchuan disaster exposure did not have a significant impact, even though we thought it should have some impacts. And we found those healthcare workers as rescuer. Yeah, they were doctors or nurses in 2008. Indeed, they report slightly higher resilience level, but it is not significant. And we found that this level of significance, in fact, is very similar to the one 5 years after the Wenchuan earthquake, because there is a team led by Professor Ni. He and his team found that 5 years immediately after the earthquake, the healthcare workers report about 60. So our study 11 years after is, so we can see that the healthcare workers report steady or stable level of resilience even 5 years midterm post disaster, or 11 years long term after the disasters. And number 4, healthcare workers' resilience was influenced by workplace, because we collect data from the 3 different hospitals, right? Number 8 is the largest hospital. In working in that hospital, the healthcare workers report higher resilience level. So now we go back to check, and we found that in fact some scholars have already indicated the resource is very important, and bigger size of hospital, they have abundance of resource to help to support the healthcare workers. So again, where is the vulnerable hospital, and who are the vulnerable group? Those should be the healthcare workers with a lower education level and working in the small hospital. So here I use a case, how to use a widely adopted scale to assess the individual resilience in Wenchuan and Sichuan for 11 years after the disaster earthquake. And now let's move to family disaster resilience. Professor Shaw has helped us to understand for improving individual resilience or disaster knowledge or literacy, education is important. But for family, for community, and intervention in the community may be more useful. And family resilience, who are interested in family resilience, in fact, they are scholars from psychology or social work. There is a branch in social work, family therapy. They are really interested, they are very keen to understand family resilience. And former Walsh, the professor from the University of Chicago Department of Psychology, she is well recognized as the mother of a family resilience framework. She developed the questionnaire to measure the level of family resilience in 2016, and now this scale has already applied in a disaster scenario. And she divided the family resilience into 3 parts: family belief system, organizational system, and the communication. And we know that in fact disaster as one of the setbacks or one of the difficulties indeed have some positive influencing on increasing families' cohesion or cohesiveness as well as resilience. And in China, we found that in the rural area, some of the rural family, how they cope such time of the image or the damage after disaster, some of them will migrate to the cities to work, to increase their household income, to rebuild their house. And now let's go to look at how we develop a shock scale based on former Walsh full scale of family resilience. And we know that a family played very important work in disaster risk management, right? Because when we count, especially for FEMA counts disaster preparedness, they count 3 days water, 3 days food. So all of them are based on family. So family is the basic unit to prepare those essentials. They are the first responder before governments launch help, and they share information among different members in the family. And the parents pass the skills as well as the knowledge about disaster, what is risks, how to cope with those risks among different generations. They provide emotion support during the difficulty time. But former Walsh family resilience scale is for general context. We do need a short scale, since in disaster context, we need a quick check, a fast check. So this is why we need to develop a short scale to assess family resilience for the disaster context. And then let's look at how we did it. Yeah, we had a couple of steps. The first step is establish a committee to assess. The committee was constructed by multidisciplinary researchers, and we assessed the 32 items in former Walsh scale and pick up those most essential and sensitive to disaster scenario. And then because the scale is in English, but in Hong Kong we use Cantonese as the mother language. So we launch a back and forth translation, and then we pilot test the first version, and then we collect data and then we test the reliability and the validity for the shock questionnaire. So we use a telephone survey. We collect 1,015 participants in our general public. They are adults. They are citizens in Hong Kong. Okay, so this is the data in detail. What are the score of this shock scale? We use WFRQ9. Yeah, there are only 9 items to measure the resilience, especially, which can be adopted in the disaster context. And here we give the result as well as the score of this shock scale for the different group of people. And also we use a factor analysis to confirm the structure. And there are 3 models, and we found model 1 layer and 1 factor, and model 3 2 layer to 3 factor. They are satisfied, but the model 3 2 layer and 3 factor, it is the best. Okay, so because we developed this shock scale for the disaster scenario, right? And thirdly, we test the association between disaster preparedness, typhoon, emergency response, because in Hong Kong, typhoon is the highest frequent hazard for our city. And we found that, in fact, the disaster preparedness is positive associated with family resilience. So this furtherly supported that this is a shock scale for family resilience, and is good for the disaster research. So the discussion part, we developed the scale, we validate the shock scale, and the shock scale showed that a good construction, and it's correlated with disaster risk management. And now there are 9 different research teams from different areas, including Turkey, Israel, Taiwan, and many other countries have contacted us for using this shock scale. If you are interested to understand disaster family resilience, especially for disaster research, please let us know. Of course, you can go to search the paper. The scale has been attached. Okay, the next one is community disaster resilience. It's the resilience for community, right? Why? Again, we want to understand the vulnerability. We want to allocate the resource for the vulnerable communities. But for assessing community resilience, there are 2 main different approach. One is objective approach and one is subjective approach. This is one of the feedback to Dr. Park's question. Some teachers, science teachers, use a question with a correct answer. In fact, that can be named as objective approach to assess the level of knowledge. The other hand is perceived, self-reported level of knowledge. And for objective approach, usually they are top to down, because we are using census data, we are using the government survey data. For example, here, Professor Susan Carton from South California, she developed a base resilience indicator for community. And this is one of the most widely adopted objective approach. And on the other hand, Laken from Turkey, and she and her team developed the CCRAM. This is a questionnaire to ask the local resident to rate, to give a rate of their the resilience of their community. So it's a bottom-up social voice approach, let the local participant to rate how resilient their community. And now let's use Hong Kong to understand the objective one. We know that Hong Kong is a global city, and it's when we look at the land of the size, is much smaller than Seoul, and it's provide land for 7.4 billion population here. But it is a migration city. 20% of the population there, they are migrants. And about 20% of the population there, they age 61, 65 or above, and 7% of them with disability. 24%, that means 1/4 of the population, they report long-term medical needs. So those age population and disabilities with long-term healthcare needs, they are exactly the vulnerable group in our disaster scenario. And at the same time, housing is also one of the build-up influencing factor we found in Hong Kong have very important influencing on the literacy as well as disaster preparedness. In Hong Kong, half of the population they are renting for their housing, and 2 million of people they are renting government provided apartments. Usually those public housing, they have a smaller public space and is have a negative influencing on the well-being as well as the other relevant indicators. And this is the land of the Hong Kong city, and the government divided its land into 9 primary planning units, 52 and 291. In this year's work, we assessed the resilience, community resilience for 291 TPU. And now let's look at the result. We applied the Susan Carter's framework, and this is the result of the community resilience in Hong Kong at TPU level. And then in geography, we conduct some spatial analysis, right? And we found the hot as well as the cold spot. Here, the hot spot they are in blue. The cold spot they are in red. Red means low cluster. That means those time of the community, they report lower marks in community resilience, and their surrounding community also report low. And for the they are in the north. North means the border. Yeah, Hong Kong and Shenzhen share the border. And the Iceland area, the airport is here, as well as Kwun Tong. Kwun Tong is an old industry area with a large amount of elderly people. And where is the best community for community resilience? They are in Tai Po, one of the new town in New Territories, and some of the communities in Kowloon Tong. We know that Kowloon Tong is a community for middle age with a very good healthcare facility, education facility there. Here is a very small piece of study to understand the built environment in Hong Kong indeed have significant influencing on the personal well-being. We know that if bigger open space can positively increase people's well-being, especially during the COVID-19. And if they live in the public housing community or their surrounding area with a high percentage of the public residential area, it's negative. It is a negative influencing factor on their well-being. Okay, the last one is a city disaster. It's very easy to understand, right? It is the ability of the city to recover from the setbacks. And in fact, city disaster resilience is the extension of community disasters. And urban planning, city management scholar as well as geographer, they are really interested because it is a big geography scale. And what types of the technology now we can use to understand city disaster resilience? In fact, city information modeling, like these are the two platforms. One is in the New South Wales state. They developed such type of a digital platform to understand all the physical environment in their city. And the bottom one, in fact, is our collaborator presented last year. It is the LX Digital Trained Platform. If you go to search, you can access this platform, especially in South Korea. And in UN, they had the 10 essential for making city resilience. 10 essential, that means 10 indicator. You can also go to UN to search from governance to build up better. And we use this 10 essential to assess the city resilience of Hong Kong, our city. And we found that Hong Kong did very well in financial capacity, natural ecosystem, because Hong Kong, only 20% of the land has been developed, and the other 70% they are still countryside. They are small hills. They are woodlands. And so society capacity, Hong Kong also did very well. But for governance, resilience, identification, and institutional capacity, Hong Kong report low score. And here, if the funding provider, they need to support research relevant to disaster in Hong Kong, which will be the topic. Those should be about governance, risk identification, and the institutional capacity. Okay, so this is the summarize slide. We understand that, in fact, in our human society, there is no only one resilience. There are resilience for individual, family, and the community resilience, and the city resilience. But there are still many scientific problems here. For example, we know there are different scales, but we do not know the connection among the different scales of resilience, and their interaction with our big disaster risk management. Even though UN categorizes it into four phases, from the prevention, preparedness, response, and recovery. But how resilience and interact with disaster risk management. So here we need a lot of work, and multiple as well as interdisciplinary is one. What we can hear, all the scholars can do together. Yeah, Professor Laurie Pick, the head of a Nature Hazard Center in Corridor University. She and her team published a paper in 2021 to indicate the importance of the transdisciplinary, because transdisciplinary can increase the depth, breadth, and integrates what we understand. For example, the physics professor here, the science education professor here, the disaster researcher professor here. We can work together to let us have more resilience and sustainable community as well as city. So this is the end of my presentation. Thank you very much.